أفلح من صلى على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. ومن يعظم شعائر الله فإنها من تقوى القلوب. And he who practices in the rituals of Allah, they are a source of strength for your heart. I'm going to refer to sha'air as rituals. That's what we've referred to them as in English. And I'll have to say that initially, that was going to be the whole subject and breaking it down and what it means and what it doesn't mean, perhaps. But I think before I can even get there is that there's a few other things that I have to paint a clearer picture. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. أعوذ بالله من إبليس وجنوده. Before I get into the subject of sha'air, I want to get into a subject that precedes it. The German philosopher, who many of you may have heard of, who for linguistics reasons, I can't say his name here. When he pronounced that God was dead, that's the subject that I really have to get into, and I think that's the important subject. It's because there is a certain shift that happened to society, and they killed God in people's hearts. And that shift happened when we changed the way that people think. And what we did is we took the heavens and we brought them down to the earth. So this is a complex subject, and the time I have is very limited, and I will get into the details in future lectures. But I tread carefully in the sense, not because I think that I'm going to say something that will offend someone here. I think that probably 80 or 90% of the people here, we agree wholeheartedly that this is an essential part of our belief system and our practices. But I tread carefully because of another reason. And I tread carefully because, in a sense, I consider myself a progressive. And in a sense, I also consider myself a modernist. But I'm very careful in how I say it, and I have to be very deliberate, is because I don't think that I'm against most people who say they're progressives and modernists, because in how we because it comes down to what we mean when we say that. It's a worldview that I fundamentally disagree with, because the way I see it is that there are things that we have to update, but start from the core is that God is perfect, and the religion of God is perfect. And to change that in order to be able to fit a modern narrative is selling your values. And he who brings us all together, Imam Hussein, tonight, he says, Al-mawtu awla min rukub al-ari. He says, death with honor is better than life with humiliation. So I strongly think that our values and our integrity is something that we should never compromise. But the thing that needs changing is we need to change our understanding of certain things. It's because words shift and the meanings of words shift. And they shift as your knowledge of the world increases. Before, if someone used to say earth, what they meant was matter. Because all matter comes from the earth. But as our understanding increased and we discovered that there was matter beyond the earth, we started using the word matter. In order to understand what heaven and earth is, what we have to do is we have to step back into an ancient cosmology. And when we refuse to do that, what we do as a direct consequence is that we reduce things to meaningless constituents. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. Is that when we don't see things the way that they were supposed to be seen, is that we reduce things to something that is meaningless. And I like to use the example of a grandmother. Is that when someone dies, you ask her, where did the person go? She'll say, up. And then if you ask her, like, where up? The moon? Or are they conversing with people who are who are astronauts in the space shuttles? Is that if you break things down in a certain way, and there's a certain principle that if you use, and that's what I mean by when they said God is dead, there's a certain principle when you use, you can demolish religion. And I can give you many other examples, and of which are the sha'air that we're talking about, because you can reduce them to just the smallest components and you can break them down. In fact, even if you look at like a sheikh or a marja or a priest, is that if you reduce things to the smallest components, why does he wear a funny hat when everybody's kind of wearing suits now when we're so advanced? Is that when you act upon that principle, you do something that has adverse effects. So the concept is I don't believe in God, I believe in science. And that's the concept that I'd like to go into further detail, but I'm just going to touch upon it. You see, it's a form of a simplistic materialist worldview. And it's an ideology that's held by the secular world that we live in. And it's actually not just that, it's the dominant ideology, and it's permeated across all levels of government and society. In addition to this is also the world view that's held by most rational people, most people that we consider to be rational. And this is the world of academia and universities and high schools. And that is the world view that the most rational people in our society now hold. And this worldview, they don't believe in the invisible world, and they don't believe in the supernatural world. And they imagine the supernatural world to be something similar to this world, but it has an invisible substance. It's like a physical world, but we can't see it. And they also believe that everything in the world is rational, and that religion, it's a preference, but that religion is not rational. And they believe that the fullness of everything that exists out there is exactly as we perceive it. And it's just a range of measurable phenomena that we give value to. So everything that we understand is from what we see. And everything from what we understand is what we can measure. In addition to this, the majority of the people I speak to, have come to some sort of separation between religion and human behavior. And we've isolated the two when what we should be doing is that we should be seeing them as a coherence of both behavior and knowledge. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So there are a set of behaviors and beliefs that should flawlessly merge together. So I'm here to argue not only is this worldview irrational and incomplete, but also religion, not only is it rational, but the symbolism contained within religion and the rituals are fully rational. And not only are they fully rational, is that they constitute a fundamental aspect of human behavior. And not only that, is that I think that they also constitute a fundamental aspect of the animal kingdom. And this is a subject that we may be able to get into more detail, but it's that these beliefs and these rituals are a part of how we see things and how we perceive meaning. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So as your knowledge expands, so do words. And if you don't keep up with the shift of language, you start to say things that don't make sense. And I use the examples of why do our imams or sheikhs wear a funny looking hat? Why don't they wear things? And you can take anything that you believe in or anything that you do, including praying and wudu, and if you break it down to the most simple concepts, you can break it down. And so we can't translate ancient stories with modern categories. Is that everyone who misreads and misunderstands the Quran and the Hadith do it in such a manner. And when we try to, and when you try to find proper meaning for categories, the distinction between the literal and the symbolic, it vanishes. I'm going to give the example of خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. He created the heavens and the earth. See, the heavens represent all which is abstract. They're universal patterns they're universal patterns that contain meaning and purpose. See, the heavens, they're invisible. They don't have a physical form. The earth represents all that which is observable. It represents matter. It represents an infinite amount of detail that you can pay attention to. It's quantities, facts, and potentialities, and possible things that you could do. And then man, who is Adam, what is man made of? Man is made of clay, and clay is made of the earth. But what else is man made of? When Allah says, وَنَفَخْتُ فِيهِ مِنْ رُوحِي, He's made of the Spirit of God. So man acts as the mediator between heaven and earth. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So going back to what I said earlier about the structures of symbolism being universal, is that even someone who doesn't believe in them, they can't escape the structure of them. You see, for example, a scientist, what is a scientist trying to do? As a scientist is trying to unite abstract theories and join it with observable fact, join the heavens and the earth. And a scientist is someone who mediates from heavens and the earth. And he's trying to take a number of abstract theories and unify them with facts from above to below. And when you start to look at things in that manner, then you see that symbolism, and what I mean by symbolism is something that you can't escape, because if someone can't understand why our beloved sheikhs and imams wear the turban, is that if they can't understand it, they can understand why a police officer wears a funny hat. I mean, that's the same type of symbolism. It's the same pattern of human behavior. And when you look at it in that sense, you look at a sports team and you understand why everyone wears a certain uniform. Is so that there's coherence and we understand things. And it's that even if you believe in science, you're just ignorant that you don't have a religion because your religion is science. And what you've done is you've taken the heavens and you've brought them down to the earth. So God created the heavens and the earth. And this concept is a universal concept to every religion. Because the Abrahamic religions have the heavens and the earths. And the natives, they have Father Heaven and Mother Earth. And then also they're personified in gods like Uranus and Gaia. And they exist in the abstract Chinese theory of yin and yang. Is that these are universal concepts that apply not to just religions, they apply to human behavior. Salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So God created heaven and earth, and it was dark, and it was empty, and it was void of everything. And from heaven comes things that help you see the world. Speech, kun fayakun. And He taught us the names, وَعَلَّمَ آدَمَ الْأَسْمَاءِ. And they are the symbolic identities of representations. It's how we understand what things are. And Him breathing upon us from His Spirit, it represents that within us that comes from the divine. Because the man is a mediator of heaven and earth, and he is made of clay, but he is also made of God's breath. And from heaven comes that which makes it possible for identities to exist. It's because you can't see light, but it makes it possible to see other things. Is that you can't see language, but it helps you navigate the world that we are a part of. Is that you don't see God's Spirit, but it helps you discern right from wrong. And you don't see you don't see wind, but it moves the trees and regulates the weather. See, the unseen world is not a world we're going to travel to. You don't die and go to heaven, not as people understand it. Heaven is not a place, it does not have time. And when we reduce it to that, and that's what's happened now, is that we have the steps that have been taken decades ago to destroy religion, and they are having their effects on religion now. Is that what we need to do is we need to recouple the abstract and the observable. We need to couple the abstract and the observable, the heavens and the earth. And that's what I mean by that. Science is useful, but it means nothing without God. And this is what I mean that science must be nested within religion, because you must understand religion from that perspective, because it is that perspective that gives you meaning and allows you to see the world. So as we have gained in terms of technology, which is the knowledge of the earth, we didn't catch up in terms of our knowledge of the heavens. And if we don't understand the intrinsics, because I mentioned earlier, before, you didn't need to be deliberate about it. You do good, you go to heaven. No one challenged you. Right now, everyone is challenging you. And you have to have a deep understanding of what you believe in, even if you don't think you'll do wrong. Being in this country, you will have children who will be subjected to those things that if you don't understand, we're going to lose it. And in closing, I'd just like to comment on two comments that brothers gave me. One brother is brother Ibrahim Saad, who said, I'm giving problems, what's the solution? From another brother that asked me, he's like, how is it? And I answered that I'm learning. And he's like, aren't you teaching? And the way that I see it is that if I think that I'm teaching, if somebody thinks that they're teaching, it's not, they're not doing it. What I'm doing is I'm sharing what I know. And I'm sharing what I know because I see a problem, and in us understanding a problem is that we can understand, or at least start moving towards a solution. So tomorrow, inshallah, we'll be talking about the devil and some of that, and the symbolism of the devil, and how the devil is real, and how the devil exists upon multiple different layers. And I like to be able to it's good to be able to frame these things from a way that they haven't been framed before, because we're dealing with a time that we haven't dealt with before. أفلح من صلى على محمد وآل محمد.